As a child, we all long for a hero. As a society as a whole, we search for that leader that can be our hero. But as we mature and as we grow, it dawned on us that the hero is inside every one of us. And in the world's social media, we all start at zero. And slowly we search deep within ourselves to find who we are. And we have that moment of truth where we embrace that the hero that we've been searching for has been there all along. It is living deep inside of every one of us. And we start embracing that journey and we become that hero that we search for.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to episode 96 of Zero to Hero, presented by J29 Creative Group. I am so excited to be joined by our next guest. This is one of my favorite brands in the city ever since they reopened in 2014. He is the president of Rieger Co. His name is Andy Rieger, so let's go ahead and bring him in. Andy, how are you this morning?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for joining me. So like I mentioned, this is one of my favorite brands in the entire city. But for anybody that maybe doesn't know what you guys do over there, what is Rieger Co. and what do you guys have going on?
Yeah, so at the high level, very basically, Rieger Co. is a distillery. It was originally founded in the 1800s by my triple great grandfather. That's the J. So to all those people that cold call and ask for Jacob Rieger, our team typically gives them the appropriate response of, Jacob has been dead for 108 years. How can we help you? So it started in 1887, died with Prohibition. And as you mentioned, we brought it back 95 years later. Originally, it was in the West Bottoms. Now we are located in the Historic Electric Park District, which is within the East Bottoms, so the opposite side of town, still a historic neighborhood. And then in 2019, we did a mass scale expansion. And so here we are as a brand where we've got, we always say we're the biggest local distillery or the smallest large distillery, depends who you're talking to. And from that, we're not walking to a bar and you see some equipment in the back that's sparingly run. We really focused on manufacturing. And so we've got 75,000 square feet dedicated to manufacturing space. We've got the former head of Maker's Mark taught our team how to make whiskey until his passing in 2018, regrettably. And then the former head of Tanqueray and Smirnoff teaches our team how to make gin and vodka. And that's why we started with those products. That wasn't a calculated thing other than you have the right people for those products. And then, like I said, in 2019, we did a big expansion. Fortunately, right before COVID, our timing was perfect in order to launch our new building, which is an old building that we did with a large historical renovation that we feel is the most gorgeous historical building in all of Kansas City. And, the goal was beyond just a business. We're really that brand that our entire city has been looking at as we're bringing people to a distressed neighborhood. We're on the east side of Kansas City, and not a lot of people invest in these parts of Kansas City as a whole. And we would try to figure out the formula, and we created really incredible concepts so that it's not just a tasting room that you come to. We got an outdoor bar that's a quarter acre, that's a garden. We've got a really cool cocktail bar in the basement called the Hey Hey Club. We've got a really awesome social lounge on the second floor that's 5,000 square feet that overlooks the production floor. And then we also have our tasting room. And so just from a night out experience, we had to try to figure out and come up with what is going to bring people to a neighborhood that they typically would say, I'll never go to that neighborhood. And that's been our physical goal. But on the distribution side, things are going great. We're in 27 states, we're in 4 countries, and that business is going as well. So it's kind of this two-headed monster, and you just got to feed each one at its appropriate time.
I love that, man. I love that you bring up that nobody's really going to the east side right now, because when I was growing up in Kansas City, it was downtown that nobody ever went to, right? I mean, Westport was kind of the party spot. Downtown was really ran down and really overlooked. And obviously now we've put so much into getting people downtown. I feel like that's kind of the progression of our city, right? Is, hey, nobody's going to this neighborhood. Let's put some cool stuff there, right? So people will actually go over there. And if you haven't had the opportunity to get out to the distillery and take a tour, I highly recommend it. I actually did that during COVID, so I appreciate you guys staying open and providing tours. A good way to get out, check out some stuff. The tasting room is absolutely beautiful, and the spirits are next level. I mean, I'm a whiskey guy. I'm not a gin guy, but that's got to be one of the best gins I've ever tasted in my entire life. So I have to ask you before we really get into the meat of the show, what's your favorite product that you guys produce?
I personally, I mean, whiskey can never go wrong, but I personally love the gin, and that is one in which whiskey is such a bigger seller of ours, and so every business book should tell me that I should only talk about whiskey because it's what we're old, but honesty is a principle of wine. And especially in the summertime, there's nothing better than, so our gin only uses 5 botanicals, real simple. And again, created by the former master distiller of Tanqueray. And I just put it over ice, let it melt over time. And so that it gets diluted down a little bit. And I put a little orange slice in it. And it is one of those summertime, just incredible refreshers that you can sit outside and after 3 of them, you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my wife is a big Moscow Mule fan, so obviously we had to get the J. Rieger etched cups. We've got a whole set of those in the house. We've got some monogram around here. We got the bourbon, so we're definitely big fans, and we appreciate what you guys are doing over there for sure. But yeah, again, get out there.
You guys.
Thank you. Yeah, so get out there again. Check out the Electric Park. It's a great place to watch a game. There's TVs out there. The weather is turning into beautiful weather, so it's a great opportunity to get out there and check that out if you haven't already. So let's get into the meat of it here, Andy. So kind of putting aside J. Rieger & Co. Okay, I know that's kind of hard to do because that's a big part of who you are. Obviously, it's you share a name in there as well. It's a family business, but kind of putting aside that, who is Andy Rieger?
So I am a nerd at heart, and I was the kid that. My oldest kid is in kindergarten right now, and he loves math and chess. And it's so comical because my wife is the complete opposite, and she's just like, well, we at least know he's your kid. And so from that, I was the kid in 2nd grade that tested out of our math class in 2nd grade, and I got to administer the math tests. So from there, I went to school at SMU down in Dallas because of their business program. I wanted to be in the financial world, private equity, investment banking, those things. And I was a double math finance major. And it was right around the financial recession where I was coming out of school, and the prior year hiring had been frozen. And so I was actually given an offer to leave school early to take a job that was arguably the job that I wanted, and did it, and then spent about 5 years in Dallas working in that space in general, while also planning on the distillery side. Quit in 2014, moved back to Kansas City, where I was born and raised, and started the distillery. And it was the real bit and piece of a lot of that's the impactful side of it. Less of a fun and fond of marketing, more of a true experience side was, growing up, I always knew that J. Rieger & Co. existed. I always knew what it was. We had old shot glasses around the house, old whiskey bottles, old advertisements. But I always tell people the same thing, that the history of your family doesn't mean anything. And so from that, when you just think about as a little kid, something cool in your past, you're more concerned about, are you going to get cookies for dinner or after dinner, excuse me.
Yeah.
And so that idea as a whole, I never respected it though, but I always knew that it existed. And it wasn't until the summer of 2010 that my father was actually diagnosed with a extreme form of cancer and died 9 weeks later. And during that time frame, I was living in Dallas, and I actually had him record on his Mac desktop computer videos that I said, I'll only watch these after you pass away. So record whatever you want, knowing I'm not going to we'll never have a conversation about them. And one of the things that he recorded was how an old building that was built by the Rieger family in 1915, the Rieger Hotel at 20th and Main Street in Kansas City, was going to have a new restaurant coming in it with one of the up-and-coming chefs and bar minds of the city. And if he wasn't around, I had to go visit it. Separate from that, he also told me in a different video that no matter what happens in life, knowing that he was not going to make it much longer, I was to never move back to Kansas City unless I had a legitimate reason. And he said, you will know what that reason is, but my passing is not that reason. And so it was a very, very firm argument. So Christmas rolled around that year. I came back, visited my mom, and went to the restaurant 3 times, met the guy behind the bar, Ryan Mabey, and we started talking about his crazy idea that he wanted to build this, a lot more what you see and recognize as a small local distillery. Like they exist all over the country and world, where it's a bar and they happen to make alcohol in the back. And I wasn't really interested in that, but I wanted to see him do it. I did not want to be a partner or investor or, give him my contacts in those regards, but I wanted to just help him put his business plan together. And that led to me doing a lot of the work and eventually completely changing the business plan into a distribution-based business with no retail whatsoever. And so when we sort of did that, getting in touch then with the guy that ran Maker's Mark, the guy that ran Tanqueray, a big contact who did a bunch of work for Tanqueray and Diageo over the years, the guy who started the whole entire commercialization of the mezcal industry. These people fell in love with the idea of this historic brand coming back as a distribution-based model, and they thought I was going to be involved the whole time. And I was essentially planning this business as an investment banker for someone else with no emotion being put into it, because I knew that was ultimately the cardinal sin of starting a business, was something that gets too emotional. And so it wasn't until the summer of 2013 that my then girlfriend, now wife, just looked at me one day and said, you remember how your dad told you only move back to Kansas City if you ever had a reason? I think you've been building that reason this whole time and you just haven't realized it. And so that was really the moment that I shifted my mentality away from, this is going to be something that is going to be fun to visit when I come back, to this is what I am supposed to do. And at that time I was 26, I believe, and was a little bit of a, I don't know if you bleep things out, but this is the honest way to say it. I was in a little bit of the fuck it mentality in life, where it was, I just lost a parent. You saw what life was going to be as an investment banker for the rest of your life, and it would be rewarding financially, but maybe a little bit of a drag and a beatdown from time to time. And this was probably the opportunity that I had to be able to take a risk, do something out of the ordinary. And, even my mother didn't understand it. She thought I was being totally nuts, because all the distilleries that, existed primarily that aren't in the big hot zones of distilleries, the Louisvilles, you can tell we're an industrial area. We have training. The Scotlands, the Louisvilles, whatnot, they were all small distilleries that were bars. And so she knew that wasn't my forte or anything that I really wanted to be involved with. And so she didn't get it. And, when you're doing something because that it's right and what you're doing is going a little bit outside of the ordinary from how everybody else is doing it, people are going to doubt you. They're going to think that you're crazy and nuts, and they're going to deny that what you're doing is appropriate or right. And, there was just a handful of people that really saw it. And, those people all joined forces, and I got to say that the way that we did it, we wouldn't change how we did it. And if you asked me to repeat how we did it, I would tell you there was no chance in hell, because while everybody always likes to say that luck has nothing to do with it, I firmly believe that luck is everything in the business world. It's just about, are you prepared to grab a hold of that luck, or are you prepared to watch it go by?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many good things to unpack there, but I think, part of that luck comes in just the fact that you're based in Kansas City, and luckily the city loves everything about itself, right? We're a little bit narcissistic in that way of, the citizens dress like tourists all the time because we love everything about the city, right? So I'm sure that's been a huge support for you guys, is just, having a great city like Kansas City, really lean into it, right? Obviously, this kind of started, like you mentioned, with Ryan in the Rieger Hotel, and I believe it was the restaurant was under a different name starting off, right? And then they changed, right? They opened a new concept that was the Rieger, right?
It was the Rieger Hotel Grill and Exchange when they first opened, and then they just simplified it to the Rieger.
I love it. Yeah, leave that train going, man. That's as good as it can get around here for sure. I mean, that's we're in the East Bottoms over there, right? So that's gonna happen. I love it. Now you guys, so back when great grandpa started this business in 1887, right? There was no internet, there was no social media. The marketing looked drastically different. I actually believe, if I remember correctly, you guys were sending out mailers, right? It was like a magazine that had that you could mail order the original whiskey through, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I always describe it as it was either put in newspapers or sent as direct mailers, and they looked like sushi menus, is the way I describe it. One
Nice.
side, it was this beautiful, colorful advertisement that you wanted to frame and that we do frame here nowadays. And the other side, it legitimately looked like a sushi menu where it was, pull out your pencil, mark the quantity, do your own multiplication, do your own summation, and then send in that proper amount of money. And it had all the, rules and regulations for it. But, one of the most interesting things about that style of marketing that they did was they had the entire 1500 block of Genesee Street down in the West Bottoms, which is spelled differently today than it was historically. And one of the more fascinating things about that marketing tactic was, in order to track which publications they were receiving the actual money from, people that were noticing and recognizing, was we've seen registrations of these advertisements anywhere from 1501 to like 1549 or something like that, or 1569 or whatever it was, because they all would just go to the 1500 block, which was J. Rieger & Co. So based on where something was actually addressed to, they knew what publication that it actually came out of. So it was a tracking tool before we had any form of digital tracking technology. And so they knew how to really jump ahead and focus on those things or not. And again, the rules back then were negligible relative to what we have to prescribe by today. So it was just a really cool thing to be able to see what they were able to get done and accomplish as a relatively small brand in a country that was relatively new at that stage.
Yeah, way ahead of their time for sure at that point. Obviously, when you guys reopened in 2014, now we've got internet, social media is already running rampant at that point, right? So tell us a little bit about that journey, right? When we opened up the J. Rieger Instagram, the Facebook page, right? The Twitter, as it was called back then, right? We had 0 followers, 0 likes, 0 posts, 0 shares. So what's it been like to start that journey from 0 to where you guys are at now, obviously with a healthy following?
I will say that, and the start of us is really the story to be told on this. And I mentioned a little bit ago luck, and I really feel that luck is something that has to really be discussed, because I believe in it. When we started out, there was not a lot of local choice. People were wishing we had a awesome whiskey company to call our own here in Kansas City. But it went beyond that. It was also the element that, if I told you we started in October 30th, 2014, that was the day that we launched. What do you remember about that? Either that day, that month, that year?
Big time. It was a big time in Kansas City, where the Royals were good for a couple of years there.
Exactly, and that was the first year the Royals were good. If you remember that September 30th of that year, that was when we had the play-in game against Oakland. And, arguably even though we've won Super Bowls and World Series, I mean, a lot of people, I think, that went to that game probably say it was the greatest sports experience of their entire life. And I absolutely know that I call it that. So I think that the idea that Kansas City was hungry, looking for something to be really proud of that was its own, combined with here we were as a city that we were experiencing, and the Chiefs were terrible during that time. I don't even remember I think Alex Smith had just gotten brought in at that phase to try to help turn the team around in general. But it was this momentous period of Kansas City was building itself up. And that was how we were going to not only survive, but thrive as a city. And so, going from 0 to, wherever we are today on followers, on interests, I also absolutely credit the restaurant. The restaurant, the Rieger, was shut down during COVID. But between it and Manifesto in the basement, it was legitimately one of the top 5, hands down, staples that if someone came to Kansas City, you knew you would be proud to take them to that place. And because you knew the food was going to be great, the drinks were going to be great, the authentic experience felt like Kansas City, and you knew that it was extremely unique relative to our city compared to anywhere else. And so being able to have that as sort of a springboard up front really helped propel Jay Rieger & Co. at the early onset. And then once we started to really take a hold, we started to help the restaurant do even better. And so it was this fun system where we were really helping lift each other throughout the entire process. So going from zero to where we are today, I would say that I started out as the only guy. I was the guy that showed up at 8 a.m. Before we actually opened, wondering if we were going to receive a shipment of something. I was the guy that refused to turn on the lights. I was the guy that borrowed Wi-Fi to start out with, so we didn't have to pay for it for an extra 3 months, so we could save, $180 over those 3 months. I was the guy that, ate lunch only 2 days a week. I would stay till 3 a.m. and shop vac a 15,000 square foot floor because I didn't want to buy sweeping compound. Those small little details that people don't think about that are really the true heart of, let me use a word that I hate, entrepreneurship, that a lot of people see the sexy, glamorous side, but they don't really recognize just how tough it is at the early onset of trying to get people to be convinced that what you're doing is right and positive for some of their beliefs. And ultimately, I do feel that as long as you are convinced that what you are doing is correct and is positive for society, it may take 1 year, it may take 1 month, it may take 10 years, it may take 40 years, but eventually people will catch up with it. And that's been our motto all along, is just make sure you're doing the right thing and let's try to not fuck this up.
I love it. Well, you guys are definitely doing a good job, obviously, with everything that we've got going on over there at the East Bottoms. And I personally love the Instagram and watching, what's coming next, right? It always seems like every time I look at you guys' page, there's always something new that's happening within Jay Rieger and new space, or new concept, things like that. So I love it, and people love to watch it. I know I'm not the only one. You guys have a good following there. Now I'm going to ask you about your defining moment, but I'm going to ask you kind of both sides. So we talked a little bit about the career side. What do you think your defining moment as far as your life is concerned?
I probably have multiple. I will say very, very basic ones. I would say there's probably 4 in my life that really created definition for everything. Maybe 5 if we're going to get a little kitschy on it. First one was, like I said earlier, I chose to go to SMU in Dallas, Texas. The reason for that was they had an incredible business school. I was pre-admitted to it. It was a recruiting tool of theirs to get some kids that they wanted in certain areas. And their placement rate in the segments of the industry or the financial world that I wanted to go into was something like 98% for the 5 years prior to me picking of people that got pre-admitted to the business school. And so it was a huge thing, but going away was tough. And there was a conversation that I had in my dad's dining room with one of his best friends who had gone to University of Pennsylvania, and his roommate was actually Steve Cohen, who now owns the New York Mets. But he told me, he said, and he always calls me Andrew still to this day. He said, Andrew, get the fuck out of Kansas City. He goes, you can always come back, but it is so hard for you to ever leave if you decide to go to KU. And that was his, I didn't say I was going to KU. It was just his local, 40 minutes away option that was a real big school. And that stuck with me. And so it was that moment that I was convinced I wanted to go away, but I needed someone to push me. And that was a very big defining moment for me. The second one, and obviously because that set my career trajectory, learning things, whatnot. Probably the second one was obviously, we hit on it as well, my father and his passing, and a little bit of my, it takes a lot for, and this is the sentimental side, it takes losing somebody in life or losing something incredibly precious to you to understand the value and meaning of life, and to understand just how short it is and just how meaningless a lot of aspects that we get so tied up with on a daily basis are. And once you can learn to release those, and you really, and I'm not getting philosophical in the meaning of life with this conversation, but I'm getting philosophical with the conversation of what doesn't have meaning in life. And if something is not going your way, who cares? Move on, kind of a thing. Or you want to take a risk? Just find a way to do it to where if you fail, it's not going to be the detriment of your entire life cycle. So I would say that was a big one. Another one was obviously meeting my wife for every familial and just go do it reason that we could talk about. And, because that led obviously to the company, et cetera. And then the last one arguably was, well, it could be two that are within the same year. One was actually getting our project done in the East Bottoms. Here we are in this neighborhood where nobody wanted to invest, no bank wanted to lend. Only our current investors believed in me, in what the vision was, and were willing to give capital. I had to work my ass off to get tax credits, things of that sort. And the ability to put all that together is so much brain damage. But when you know that it's the right thing to do for your company and the neighborhood, it has more meaning than just, we're not a developer seeking tax credits. We are a business trying to grow and make change along the process. That was a big one. And then the last one has to be COVID and what COVID tried to do to us and ultimately didn't do to us. And during COVID, for the listeners out there that weren't paying attention to us during that time period, we pivoted and made 250,000 gallons of hand sanitizer that was distributed across 6 or 8 states. And we were the only game in town, really, for 8 weeks or so until the big manufacturers caught up. And so about a quarter of the hospitals were stockpiling, every single general contractor that was trying to keep job sites open, schools when they were still open, police departments, fire stations, general city services. So it was a moment of we can be whatever the community needs us to be, but also, and more importantly, it was an even further validation that it was, you can do whatever you set your mind to go do. Everybody that says something is impossible just doesn't want to put in the effort. And so us being able to take something where, I'll never forget, it was literally the first week of COVID when everything was really getting shut down and we had no idea what we were really going to focus on to try to survive. I came home one night and my wife and I had been working 18-hour days and we had one kid at the time and we were, paying astronomical babysitting dues, just trying to know that we had to figure out the company. And I just collapsed in our kitchen and put my hands in my palm and was just sobbing. And my wife just came on the ground. I was wearing my backpack still. And I just said to her, we've done everything right. And something that is completely out of our control could potentially end our lives as we know it. And it was not the sickness, it was the business. And at that time we had 70 people that worked for us. And so there were 70 families that depended on my decision-making in order to know they were going to make their rent. They were going to be able to buy their food. They were going to be able to pay for diapers. They were going to be able to do whatever it was that required money in their lives. Whatever my decisions were over the next week, I knew was going to impact those people dramatically. And so us being able to not terminate a single person during the COVID years, we even had people on our staff that said they felt guilty working for us because all their friends were out of jobs. And here they were asking their friends to go grab a drink to help them take their mind off of it. And their friends' responses were, I can't afford that. And so just being able to see what we were able to do when everybody recognized the brevity of the situation was a really, really big moment for us as an organization to know that, okay, we've got good people. We got people that understand how the world works. And when time comes, we all need to just hunker down and make sure that we're working together, and what we can do is arguably limitless.
Yeah, those huge bottles of hand sanitizer, man, those became fairly iconic, I feel like, in the J. Rieger brand themselves. I just saw one, I think we were at Legoland 2 weeks ago, and I was like, there's some Rieger hand sanitizer right there. So that stuff's still getting out there too, which is absolutely amazing, and what a crucial pivot I mean, right at the right time, right? To, hey, this is a huge need for the city, and we're able to do it. Let's do it, right? So outside of keeping your employees, all employed and all gainfully employed, right? I mean, how many people do we prevent from actually getting sick from the virus itself by distributing those things throughout the city? So, absolutely, absolutely huge. But I want to go back to the important things in life that you were talking about, man. That is, as somebody that has been far too close to death myself, that was the exact moment for me as well, where I was like, why do I care about all these little trivial things, right? I mean, they seem so important in the moment, but when you do take that step back, are they going to be important next week? Are they going to be important a month from now, 2 months from now, 10 years from now, right? And if the answer is no, I mean, move on by it, man. I mean, don't lose years off your life for a 5-minute problem, right? So I love that you said that. That's absolutely huge. Now, you guys were pretty heroic during COVID there, obviously, like we were talking about with the hand sanitizer and getting that dispersed throughout the city. That requires some kind of attributes, right? And that thinking is involved with you. Villains also obviously have attributes, but what are the attributes that you really feel define what a hero is?
I would just say that it is someone who's knows when and when not to back down. And it's a really weird way to say it that way because I'm playing both sides. Everyone sees the dramatized version of a hero, the guy that just, there's 10,000 warriors coming and he's the guy that grabs the sword and says, let's go. And I mean, sometimes there's those scenes in movies that you're like, no, like unless you're a god, that's just not how it works. Like you're going to be eventually slaughtered by a random sword in those specific instances. And so I do feel that it is it's all about someone that people entrust with decision making and knowing when and because the right decision doesn't necessarily mean be aggressive. And so that hero element, and it's in every aspect of life though. It's at your house, it's at your business. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's all about what makes society move forward the best way possible. And so, somebody that commits fraud or something like that, they may be called the smartest person in the room, but they're no one's hero. They defrauded people, and that's an ultimate issue. And so it's truly not just the people that make the decision-making power, but the people around them that anoint them. When a tough decision needs to be made, they believe that that person is going to, in their best interest, make the best decision for them on a go-forward basis. And I feel that is a modern day definition of a hero because we need more people in society that lead by example and don't lead by divisiveness.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As a Marine myself, you got to know when the fight is good and when the fight's not good, right? When it's 10,000 to 1, that's not a good fight, right? Regroup. If you die, you're not going to be able to help anybody anyways, right? So definitely don't fall on the sword. I know we've got a ton of great leaders here that would do that, right? Especially for their employees. You can't help anybody if you're not able to lead, right, from the front. So absolutely huge. Now I'm going to ask you this last one here. This is the one that kind of hangs people up from time to time. Now, if you had to compare yourself to any superhero that is out there, who would that be and why did they relate best to you, Andy Rieger?
Oh, God. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least tell a brief story about how I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old boy. Those two are... The 6-year-old is just getting into movies, and the 3-year-old every now and then just finds a movie that he loves.
Yeah.
And please don't judge me, people watching this, but they're both very into the Guardians of the Galaxy right now.
I love it.
And they absolutely love every element of it and what they do. So I think that those movies are about as clever as it gets, and I probably would just go with Peter Quill.
I love it.
Who is the main character of that. Chris Pratt plays him, not only because he's originally from Missouri, but he knows when to be serious and he knows when to be funny, and he knows how to lighten any mood with a little bit of humor, even if it is not well received, and he knows it's not going to be well received, but it just ensures that everybody knows that, hey, we can still have fun while we are having something really serious going on.
I love that, man. I love that. That's one of the best answers or reasons why that I've heard doing this show. So that's perfect.
I would say Rocket, 89 P13 from that, but I don't look. That can be my dog.
There you go.
There you go. There.
I love the cutouts too. Where did the cutouts come from?
So when you're married with kids, these are the types of gifts that you get for your birthday. So this was actually May of 2022, or sorry, excuse me, May of 2020, when we were in the middle of hand sanitizer and COVID. There was a staff birthday party that they threw for me, and my wife had this dog right here, who is my dog, laying right outside my office asleep right now. She was a rescue from Cuba, Missouri, which is where my wife's from, a little town of 3,000 people. And we got her when she was a little puppy, and she's 8 now. And so she's been coming to work with me every single day since November of 2015. And this is her building, and she's been through all the construction and the crying. And when my wife would sit on the floor and breastfeed in a warehouse, just the craziest stuff. So she knows how much Pepper, my dog, means to me and us and the company as a whole. And she's the sweetest dog. And so she wanted to get me something that, as everybody in 2020 was just starting to discover this thing called Zoom, and a more professional way of having Zoom calls at home was to put one of those Hawaiian backgrounds up that everybody started doing then. She goes, rather than a Hawaiian background, we're just going to put our dog in your background. So that was that. And then someone gave me this one right here, which is a picture of my dog as a royal person. Well, one of those that you can upload. So, just those fun things. But like I said, when you're in the middle of COVID or a global pandemic, as we like to call it, and you have kids, sometimes a 5-foot-tall cardboard cutout of your firstborn child is all that you need in order to be really happy in life.
I love it. I love that Pepper's still going to meetings even outside of I guess we're still kind of in the Zoom thing. Zoom killed it, obviously, during COVID. But, man, yeah, thank you for coming on. Thanks, Pepper, for joining us. That is Pepper, how often is Pepper kind of running around? If people were to go down there and have a drink, what are the odds that they're going to catch a Pepper sighting?
I have normal hours. So I arrive anywhere between 8 and 9 a.m. and I leave anywhere between, well, don't ask my wife the question. I like to say I leave somewhere in the 5 o'clock hour, though she might debate that. And so whenever I have happy hours, if we're outside, I'll always bring her outside on a leash. But she gets to roam freely everywhere except for where food is being prepared or the public has free reign and access to. Those are kind of the health department's rules. So we got to abide by those. But again, if anybody is down here, we do have people a lot of times that will say to our front desk, is Pepper here and can I pet her? Yeah. And our front desk will text me and they'll say, can we come get Pepper and let somebody pet her and love her? And I always say, absolutely.
Of course.
It does happen. But we also have staff, whenever they're feeling stressed or down, I'll randomly see somebody come lay down next to Pepper outside of my office and just hug her. And she's one of those dogs that's 40 pounds, so she's big enough but not too big, and she loves being loved, and she'll give the love right back.
I love it. So yeah, get down there at Electric Park, the tasting room, right? There's several different options down there at the distillery. Get down there during a happy hour. You might get to give Pepper a little pet, right? Check out Pepper a little bit. So, Andy, man, thanks for coming on. How can people keep up with you? How can they order some spirits if that's what they want to do, or some merchandise? How can they follow you guys' journey?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, our website's pretty comprehensive in that sense of learning what we are, who we do, or what we do, who we are, and the products, and what's coming, what's not, what our spaces look like. But our Instagram, is something that we've got a whole bunch of people on our marketing team here. We've got an outside agency that helps them with certain items in that front as well. And so we really keep very up-to-date information there, whether it be posts or stories, and really cool visuals of spaces and brands and when we're out in the marketplace. But one of the cool things about our Instagram, I feel, is you can see who tags us, both in the geolocation, which is obviously focused around the on-site experiences the hospitality team offers here, and then the tagging, which hits a lot of people all over the world that are interacting with our product. And so you're really able to see the outside the building use and the inside the building use all at the same time. And it's a really fun way, in my opinion, to experience a brand and see not just how the brand is trying to show you how it should be perceived, but instead how people are actually interacting with it on their own without being told what to do, what to say, or how to say it. So that's always a fascinating element and realm. But like I said, we're really cool. We've got 100,000 square feet of badass spaces that are designed in such a cool way. Our bottles are really cool looking. We do really awesome events all over the country and in certain European countries as well. And being able to sort of see what fun people can do with a business is something that when we look at going through, death or near death experiences in life, you look at it and you say, what else could you ask for?
Absolutely. Yeah, get on there and order those things. They do a great job as well with their labels, with keeping that local touch. I've got a Sporting KC bottle around here. I've got a KU bottle around here somewhere as well. So definitely keep an eye out for those. They do some seasonal things. They've got some, obviously some different things with the sports teams around here. So I know there's a lot of people that are about to come into this city here in the next few years. Get out there, get you a piece of memorabilia right from Jay Rieger. They've got cups, they've got shirts, they've got hats, they've got it all. It's right there on the website. So jrieger.com. You can also keep up with them on LinkedIn, Jacob Rieger and Company, and then their Facebook as well, Jay Rieger Co. Andy, thank you again, man, for coming on. I'm going to celebrate the end of this episode with a little spirit myself. I'm going to go get a little monogram out of the cupboard here and toast to you. Thanks, man. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Hey, are we still live? Hey guys, we're still live. Hey guys, this is Kevin Kwok, founder of J29 Creative Group. So who are we? We're a marketing agency here in Kansas City. We're all about a holistic approach to marketing that builds your brand and nurtures online community. But to be honest with you, you guys don't care.